So, why do you think scouting was an important choice for your sons?
Well, it was a good choice for all of them for a number of different reasons. They're entirely different kids, and they each had their needs met through scouting. Some were more outdoorsy than others, some were more social than others. And our two younger boys, it was an opportunity to spend time with them. I mean, I would normally spend time with them anyway, but to have sort of a focus on a badge or a trip or something like that that we could share in common, that I didn't have to, research myself or, put the program together myself, and to share that was fun. And I learned a lot of things myself along the way.
Weren't you a merit badge counselor too?
And I was a marriage badge counselor, yes, I was. Acting, which I really liked a lot. Theater was something I enjoyed. Gardening is something I enjoy. I guess you're supposed to have a vocation or avocation or a profession in the field. But the one that we talk about in our household the most is the fire prevention badge, and that is because I found my kids using fire in a really inappropriate way in the garage, and wanted to prove to them that it was no joke, and so I became a fire prevention merit badge counselor, and they earned that badge.
Didn't one of your sons take that to a whole nother level, fire prevention?
Yes, actually, our second son, Hayes, joins the fire department, in their program, their junior program, right when he turned 16, which was the date that you could start, the age that you could start right away. And he did that all the way up until high school graduation, and when he's in town, he goes up to the firehouse, and that was, I think, very similar to the scouting experience, right? Because he had a group of buddies that he was helping people, and they were all going out on a limb, and they were a team, and they were all working together for the greater good. And so I think that it paralleled scouting perfectly.
Do you think scouting had anything to do with him becoming a part of the fire brigade?
I suspect so.
Yeah.
Yes, I think maybe he was looking for, the next big adventure. So yeah, I would say so.
What are the most significant lessons your sons learned in scouting? I know you have 4 of them, so.
Yeah, interesting. I would say patience was one of them. Doing a long-term project and not being in it for the short haul, but rather the long haul. I think that I made it very clear that, as far as they could get would be great, but that Eagle was really a big deal, and that was something that they should strive for. And they were in a troop that was very deliberate about the kids taking the time to reach the different ranks and not to just speed through it and then, put a notch on your belt loop and move on to some other activity. And so, for all of the minutia and all of the different badges and all of the different hoops they had to go to rise up, that made a huge difference, because when they look back now, and they had a very good relationship with their scoutmaster, but when they look back now, they often say, I'm glad I did it that way, because they meet other kids that just kind of raced through, and it didn't impact them as much.
So I guess you should have prefaced everything with, you have 4 sons that are all Eagle Scouts.
I do have 4 sons that are all Eagle Scouts, indeed.
And what are their spread in ages?
Well, our oldest is 30, and then there's a 2-year difference, and then we waited a rather long time to have more kids, and it happened that we got a twofer, so our twins were born 9 years later.
Okay.
So we've been in scouting for a really long time. If you consider that Oliver started at the Wolf level, 2nd grade, and then, all the way through Eagle Scout for the last 2. Yeah, I was involved in scouting for a really long time.
Do you think scouting helped them with leadership, and if so, how?
Yes, I do. I think that it's funny, boys and the ages, the steps they go through when they age. I think that you either see yourself as a standout leader, or it's more common just kind of sit back and be a follower. And I think that because they had to have leadership roles as part of the process, as part of helping the troop, having jobs, but then once they got older, working to teach the other scouts and lead the other scouts. I think that it forced them into doing something that maybe was not in their comfort level, but then once they started to do it, they realized, of course, that they could do something like that. And I do see that with how they lead their lives today. For example, one of our sons just took his first commanding role in the U.S. Army. So at 28, he's leading people, and I'm sure that scouting helped a great deal. Another thing that I will say with that particular child is that he ended up going to a college where the majority of the kids in his ROTC had earned an Eagle badge, and I would say that he was really, really pleased that he was able to wear the ribbon like the rest of them. I think if he had not made Eagle, he probably wouldn't even told anyone he was in scouting, because they all made it, and he did too. And I think that was a proud moment for him, even though I don't think he would have anticipated it being a proud moment. I think when he got there, it was sort of a revelation that this is what,
So scouting exposes kids to a lot of different experiences, probably some that they might not otherwise do. Can you expand on that with your boys?
I guess other than the, sort of the military leadership style, I have another son that is currently hiking the Appalachian Trail, and I do believe that love of the outdoors and that challenge and feeling competent and comfortable, and that self-reliance, being able to be in a situation and having to deal with it on your own. A lot of that comes from scouting. One of our younger boys is studying to be a social worker, and I think for him, he really leans into the idea of a scout being cheerful and a scout being helpful, because those are two things that he always mirrors in his personal life. The kind and the cheerful and the helpful, and that is for sure, I think, part of the scouting tradition. Our other son, the other youngest one, is not necessarily an athletic type, but I think he took up a real interest in sports that he wouldn't have in high school, and I think a lot of that, again, was the belonging to a team, knowing how to work with a team because of scouting, and the importance of, even though he did track and field and cross country, it's very similar to scouting, right? So you are being self-reliant, and you are going to go as far up the ranks as you will allow yourself to go. I mean, it begins and it ends with you, but like a cross-country team or a scouting, a troop, you are surrounded by good people, you're surrounded by good coaches, and you're surrounded by different scout leaders that are going to give you the tools that you need to help you, get to where you want to be. And a lot of encouragement.
So you mentioned adults. How did scouting, and the fact that they're around a multitude of other adults, how did that help them out, and in terms of association with other adults?
Correct. definitely the people within the troop, the ones that you see weekly, the scoutmasters or the assistant scoutmasters that go camping with you or are at the meetings, etc. But the idea of each merit badge having a counselor, and a lot of those are non-scouting people. They could be somebody that has an interest or a hobby in I don't know, modeling, airplane modeling, something like that. That is a badge, and some are the parents of the other scouts, and you are working one-on-one with them to go through all of the requirements, and they're giving you ideas, and you're having to address them. Sometimes, you have to meet with them face to face, and that, you meet a lot of different types of people you wouldn't come across necessarily.
Did outside of all four of your sons being Eagles, did they have any other, was there any common events in scouting that each one of them did?
Yes, they, the first two, at the time that they were going through the troop, one of the scoutmasters was big into canoeing. And they had a couple of fabulous canoeing trips up in the Adirondack Mountains, and it was really nice because that is something that they did together as brothers, in addition to the other kids in their group, and they really loved that. And then one thing they each did individually, but they all did it, was the Philmont Scout Ranch. Out in New Mexico, Colorado area. And except for the younger two who are twins, they did that at different times, but it is a shared experience. I often think that in addition to the scoutmasters and the other people that are helping you along, you need a parent that's really going to push you all the time to, get you to the finish line, depending on, how far you want to advance. But because of the age difference in our family, I could kind of lean back a little bit with the younger two, because they had two brothers that were not going to let them stop. And so that was a little friendly peer pressure that helped.
What do you think, how do you think scouting worked on their character?
Oh, very interesting. How did it work on their character? I will say this, maybe I can circle back around, but I did notice that a lot of the badges and things that they took that was, a big, hassle, ended up being some of their greatest passions. Citizenship in the nation, in the community, in the world. One of my kids ended up being a poli-sci history major and loves history. And we currently belong to a Quizzo trivia group at a bar. And man, when those government questions come up, he knows them, and he's pretty proud of that. It's pretty amazing. Well, character. It gives you an identity, certainly. Again, I think boys that age are trying to decide, who they are and what they stand for, what they believe in. I think that the scouting program gives you a really good model and a nice stepping stone to, be involved in things that do build character. Some things might stick, other things might not stick. I think the value of that is, they leave here and they go off to college, or they have a different experience. And I think a lot of the payoff is in your later on in life, when you look back and you reflect, and it's sort of the old You don't know how good you have it when you're in it, and then when you look back and you realize that those are some of the best times of your life. You know, the first time that you saw a bazillion stars, or, you know, the first time that you forgot to pack your toothbrush and now you're just going to have to deal with it, or a warm coat or something like that. I thought, you know, things like that were very character building. I know my younger two on a couple of trips didn't always get along with other people, and you know, those other kids weren't going away, and they had to, you know, deal with that, and vice versa. Nothing, you know, serious, but learning to get along with all types of people. And for the most part, they made a completely different friend group, each of them, because they did not necessarily go to school with the kids that were in their troop. And so that exposed them to even more kids their age. And I thought that was very, you know, worthwhile. And I got exposed to parents, adults that I never would have come across in my life if it had not been for scouting. And, you know, I'm still good friends with some of them, and that's delightful. So.
Well, it's been nice talking to you.
Are you out of questions?
Yeah. Can you think of a question that I should have asked that I didn't, or something that you want to say that we didn't touch on?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I think we covered all of the salient points.
Well, yeah, I would say you have 4 very different young men, and they all got fed differently, but I think they got fed very well.
Well, thank you. And yeah, I forgot to mention that my brother was an Eagle Scout. My sister was a Star Scout, Gold Star Scout, what would be a Gold Star now. I made it through cadets. I didn't quite, you know, finish it. But I think by their examples, certainly my brothers, I knew that it was a really, really worthwhile program. And I will say, just like my boys, he went through it, he mucked through it. Some things he loved about the program, other things like it was rough to get him to leave the house to go to a meeting or two. But it wasn't until President Gerald Ford passed away, and in his obituary, they had mentioned that he was an Eagle Scout, and my brother read that, and he said, God, to my mom, I guess that really is a big deal. And she said, yeah, there aren't many of you. It is a big deal. So that just gave him a real sense of pride, and, you know, changed his, you know, outlook a little bit. So.
Well, thank you.
Fun fact. Yeah, thank you.